Hey guys, and welcome back to English with Dry. Today we are taking a look at the character of Sheila Birling from JB Priestley's An Inspector Calls and how she changes over the course of the play. Now what I've done is I've split up Sheila's development into 5 distinct points. And the first one is first impressions. Now these come largely in the stage directions we get right at the beginning, and also in what we hear her say and how she reacts to others in Act 1. Firstly, we hear that she is a very pretty girl, pleased with life and rather excited. Then we hear that she is half serious while also being half playful. And then when Gerald proposes to her, she asks him of the ring, "Is it the one you wanted me to have?" And finally, she comments that she really now feels engaged. The first thing to notice here is that, as with Eva Smith, one of the first things commented upon about Sheila is her appearance. Now, this kind of reinforces the value of women's looks in Edwardian England, and how that they were measured in terms of their worth largely in as much as how attractive they were, particularly with a woman like Sheila, for whom marrying a successful man, or rather securing a successful marriage, is pretty much the most important thing for her. And of course, to do that, she needs to look good. The fact that she is half serious and half playful shows that she is not quite at ease with herself yet. She's not fully formed as an adult, even though she's in her early to mid-20s. It's interesting that the juxtaposition of serious and playful is used, because really it shows that she's got the potential for critical thought and, cognitive reasoning, but also that she's kind of never had to use it. She's never had to rely on either of these things, and so therefore she can never take any moment that seriously, or at least this is what we are kind of taught about her. Now, as an upper-class woman, it's highly likely that she would never have been taught to be particularly serious, that she would never have been taught the value of her own brain, because what is the point, really? I mean, she wouldn't have been going to university, she wouldn't have been expected to work. Really, there would have been no need for her to be intelligent. The way she responds to Gerald after he offers her the ring really kind of enforces that he's in charge. He wields total control over the relationship. Now, even down to the fact that he gets to choose the ring. Now, the ring is obviously the symbol of their marriage, but in that sense, it's a symbol that she's his. And so not only is it a symbol that she belongs to somebody, of course, that person being Gerald, the fact is he has chosen how that should look. He has chosen the very mark of the thing that combines them. That he has chosen the symbolic thing that shows that she belongs to him. And this is something that she just totally goes along with, which speaks a lot to what she's been taught her entire life. And the fact that she comments that she only now feels really engaged really kind of suggests that she's childish and that also she's superficial. Now, of course, we can say this isn't her fault. This is all she's ever been taught to be. But her belief is that the only real signifier of the engagement is the ring, and that shows her lack of understanding of what marriage is really like. It shows her lack of understanding of the fact that marriage is not a union of equals. It is a symbolic arrangement, which is kind of what we understand her marriage to Gerald as being, almost like a business deal. The second phase is when she initially meets the inspector and she hears about Eva Smith's death. The first thing she asks about the young woman is whether or not she's pretty. She then comments that the girls aren't cheap labor, they're people. She miserably states, "So I'm really responsible." And then finally, "If she'd been some miserable plain little creature, I don't suppose I'd have done it." Now, the first thing there kind of goes back to what we were saying in the previous slide, which is that she only measures other women in terms of their looks. Now, she is particularly commenting on Eva Smith and interested about her looks because she realizes that she is another young woman just like her. And therefore, she is kind of trying, this is before she remembers who Eva Smith is, she's trying to work out how much care she should have for this situation, how much she should be bothered about what's going on. Because clearly, if she's very pretty, then maybe it's an even bigger tragedy, or at least that's how she sees it. The second bullet point there is her first kind of outward expression that the working class have some sort of value, or even the same value that she does as a human being. Priestley uses a hyphen on purpose to create a pause when the actor says this line, and that's designed to make it almost into an epiphany for her. It's almost like the inspector has only ever really made her realize this for the first time. She would have been aware of all the women working in her father's factory, but until now she's not been fussed about it. And this is why she miserably says, "So I'm really responsible," when she learns of what she's done. Now, this is something that kind of sets her apart straight away from her father. She accepts responsibility. She's not happy about it. The stage direction says miserably, but she actually does do it. And let's be clear, the consequences of what she did are extremely grave, because they caused ultimately the suicide of a young woman. So the fact that she takes this responsibility is no small feat. She's actually admitting to being part of it, and that is something her father Arthur cannot do at all. And so this kind of splits her from him straight away, the kind of divide between the younger and older generation, which only becomes more pronounced as the play goes on. The final thing is her reflecting on her own superficiality. She admits to jealousy based on Eva's more kind of pleasing appearance. And in a way, she's almost starting to understand how stupid it is, this belief she has lived under, or this belief that she has held that the more attractive you are, the more you are worth. And she realizes that she wouldn't have done this to an unattractive or plain-looking person. And this is her sort of really starting to understand how ludicrous that is, and how little looks really matter in the grand scheme of things. It's a shame, however, that it's taken the death of someone to make her actually understand this. The third phase is how she starts responding to Gerald, both after she has heard of her responsibility for Eva's death and after she hears of what Gerald has done. She says, "Oh, don't be stupid, we haven't much time." She refers to him, "He means that I'm getting hysterical now." She cuts in, "Yes, you did, and if you'd really loved me, you couldn't have said that." And finally, "Gerald, I think you'd better take this with you." She hands him the ring. Now, the first thing to note here is the total difference in how she's talking to her fiancé from the beginning of the play. It's blunt and it's insulting. And the word stupid, even the way it sounds, the plosive noises in the middle of it, make it almost like a forceful attempt to wake Gerald up out of his stupor. Of course, wake him out of this kind of ignorant bliss that he's been living in, just like she has. And it's also indicating that perhaps she doesn't just mindlessly look up to him and treat him with nothing but love and respect anymore. Now, Gerald tries to get rid of Sheila so he doesn't have to admit to his affair in front of her. And the word hysterical is a really fascinating one, because he is implying that she's hysterical. And now, hysterical is a word that is often cited as the reason for not allowing women to vote, and so therefore it's been a word that's used to control women for hundreds and hundreds of years. "Oh, you can't do this, you're hysterical, you're too emotional." This is what the kind of old narrative of why women aren't as rational beings as men, and that sort of nonsense. But he's using this here. He's trying to quieten her down so that she leaves, and so that she won't hear about his indiscretions. But what is most interesting is that she realizes this and she calls him out on it. She calls him out on this misogyny, and this shows that her emotional maturity is increasing. Perhaps she's always had this emotional maturity. She's just failed to ever let it come to the surface through her superficiality. But either way, now she is aware of the world and she doesn't have the same fear of speaking her mind. And this is shown next when she interrupts him as well. She rightly and accurately questions his love for her in a way that he would never have expected. And she's standing up to him, which is a complete shift since the beginning of the play. Finally, after Gerald has admitted to everything, she returns the ring. And it shows that she no longer feels the need to allow him to dictate their lives. It's a total act of defiance, and one that shows her comfort in making her own decisions about her own life, and her refusal to let her life be dictated by others. She's not going to let Gerald and her father tell her what to do anymore. If she's going to marry Gerald, then she's going to do it on her own terms, and not because she has been told it's a good arrangement for her. Next, we have how she begins to blame her parents. She hears what Sybil has done, as well as her father, and she becomes a very different sort of person. "Don't interfere, please, father," is the first quote of note. "Mother, I think it was cruel and vile," referring to Sybil's choice to not help Eva Smith when she came to her for money. "The point is you don't seem to have learned anything after the inspector has left." And then finally, "It's you two who are being childish, trying not to face the facts." So the first of these kind of continues from what we were saying in the last slide, which is that she is instructing her father to keep out of her relationship with Gerald. And this maybe indicates that she's starting to actually understand what marriage consists of. Remember at the start with the ring comment, we said that she doesn't understand marriage. She thinks that it can only be signified by a piece of precious metal. But now she is kind of showing that she doesn't think this anymore. She doesn't need the input of her father, who is desperately trying to make her forgive Gerald so that he can have the union with Crofts and Crofts Limited that he so wants. Because what Sheila has done is she's realised that she can't marry a man she doesn't trust, and that is the most important thing. The way she speaks to her mother about what she did to Eva Smith is completely frank. It's honest, it's truthful, it pulls no punches, and it shows that she no longer treats her mother as someone whose opinion must always be trusted. Remember we heard before about how her mother tried to warn her that the dress didn't look good on her. And now she is telling her mother off. She is being really critical of her. And that is because she feels that she needs to do this. It's her responsibility. And it also shows that she sees her mother not as somebody who should be listened to, but somebody who is fallible and capable of making mistakes. This is what causes her to be so cross with them when they seem to try and cover everything up. She's become critical of the fact that they are ignoring the inspector's message, and she's starting to go through that process that every young person goes through, which is realizing that their parents are not always right about things. Now, albeit she's going through it very late, but she is finally going through it. She understands as well that they're being backward, that they are old-fashioned, and that their ways should be challenged. They shouldn't just be allowed to fester and sit. The fact she calls them childish is a really nice piece of symmetry, because obviously she was so childish at the start with all this mummy and daddy business. She is accusing them of the exact thing that she herself was guilty of, and she kind of labels their refusal or inability to accept their effect on the wider world as being something we should all outgrow once we reach a certain age. She is trying to shame them, really, presenting them as being embarrassingly selfish in how stubborn they are. The final section can be categorized as lesson learned, which shows that she has actually gained something from this experience. The worst part is, but you're forgetting one thing I still can't forget, everything we said had happened really had happened. So there's nothing to be sorry for, nothing to learn. We can all go on behaving just as we did. No, because I remember what he said, how he looked, and what he made me feel. Fire and blood and anguish. It frightens me the way you talk, and I can't listen to any more of it. In a lot of ways, Sheila kind of takes on the role of the inspector after he actually leaves. She becomes the voice of reason. Arthur, Gerald, and Sybil all begin to convince themselves that because no girl has died, at least yet, they're somehow blameless. But she reminds them that actually they did all do the things they admitted to, and that it's not simply important whether or not somebody died, but because they are in of themselves horrible things to do. The second one is phrased as a question but has no question mark. It's therefore a rhetorical statement in which Sheila is being really quite sarcastic to her parents. She's trying to show them the ludicrousness of them pretending nothing has taken place. And it's again an example of her talking to them in a totally different manner from the beginning of the play. Finally, she offers a reminder of how aligned she is with the inspector in his kind of socialist ways. It's not great to say Sheila is now a socialist, as that seems like it's a very reductive and very simplistic view of the play. But what you can say is that she has certainly taken his socialist message on board. She understands that society must take an active role in looking after its weakest members, and echoes what the inspector says about how if we do not do that, we will be punished. And so what we have here in our 5-box summary is that, firstly, Sheila is a archetypal, spoilt, immature, rich girl. Secondly, her life is controlled and mapped out by her parents and fiancé. Thirdly, the inspector tells her exactly how she was responsible for Eva's death. Next, she accepts this blame and becomes critical of Gerald. She returns his ring. And finally, she understands the inspector's message and is openly critical of her parents' refusal to accept it. I hope you found this video helpful. Stay tuned for more character profiles, and also make sure you check out the close reading of Act 1. Good luck!